Hey guys, make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on for more great content.
What is the biggest difference between amateur Counter-Strike players and like pro players? Obviously, you mentioned aim, but what are some of the other biggest differences? Like you watch an amateur and it's clear to you that when you're watching that player, it's an amateur.
Yeah, I think it's just decision making. What your decision making improves with experience, and the more scenarios you put yourself in, the more knowledge you'll have of what to do in those scenarios. So it's just, you can tell like when an amateur player is throwing a smoke or peeking something that they shouldn't, or it's just all about the decisions that you can distinct a pro from an amateur.
I think between a professional and amateur, a huge thing is definitely experience. There's a huge gap of them being like playing tournaments and playing at a higher level. But I think the main thing, like if you were looking at an amateur, I'm assuming that they wouldn't even take CS:GO like full time that seriously. It'd be more of just like a side hobby that they'd be playing or something like that, and they'd probably be working or studying at the same time. So it wouldn't be the main focus. I think that would be another huge aspect.
Well, I think there's a lot of things to change when you're amateur to go pro, but I think the thing that makes you stronger when you go pro, it's your mindset. And like amateur people, they just, I mean, like I can't like put in general like a lot of like everyone, but I think like the main amateur players, they think about themselves like individual, because they want to go pro, they want to go to like a good team, and they just think about like individual skills. So they focus on their aim and their game. But to be honest, when you go pro, you will see that your individual is like, you have to be like a really good individual, but you have to be a good teammate as well. So you have to, you need like a good mindset to go like to play in a pro team and stuff. And if you just go to a pro team and just start like to, I want to be the star, I want to do my plays, and that's it, you will see that it's not enough. Because in a pro team, you just have to think about how I can like make my team play better, like my teammates, how can I help them to play better? That's like the main difference, I guess.
I think the biggest difference between an amateur player and a pro player is that the pro player knows that he will only win if he got a good teammate and if he got a good team in, relying on team play, relying on tactics, relying on good communication, relying on revenge kills, good nades, support, stuff like that, While the amateur player, as you just said, will only think about his aim, the scoreboard, trying to kill the people in the head, stuff like this. And what is the biggest difference?
One of the things I would probably say is the general awareness of everything that's happening on the map for yourself, your position. So basically everything that comes into account. So like positioning, the moment of the round, the communication, the positioning. So basically all of that.
Yeah.
As well as the reaction to it. So like knowing the balance between when to react as a team, when to play for yourself, when to give yourself away for the team, when to this, when to that. So that whole balance and taking all those things into account to make the better decision is generally what's going to be the biggest difference. Because like aim-wise, I've seen crazy aimers at every level of the game. But what really makes the difference is in a team there is much more pressure than you would expect, because there's all the comms of everything, understanding what people are expecting from you, what you can do for your teammates, and all of that combined together create a massive mess in your brain.
Yeah.
So the faster you process that, the better you're going to be as a teammate and as a player.
I think pros have masterized so many concepts of the game, and we already mentioned some of them. Communication, positional-wise, understand the meta, like when to move, when not to move. Anchoring, like understanding when your teammates are like, hey, they're executing here, but you are the pit player on Inferno, you're not going to be able to help the B players in the next 35 seconds, so like it's not for you to move, like all those things. So there's so many factors to make a good player that they have masterized, that they have lived through those moments and learned from all the mistakes they made, that an amateur just don't have the same experience. And maybe some of those amateurs gonna kind of make some good decisions here and there, and sometimes not even know what they're doing, but they're doing it right. And there will be a couple other amateurs shit in the bed a lot, like doing a lot of mistakes, like they don't even understand what they're doing. So it's really situational, and it goes to player by player. But if you're looking to become a pro, you have to learn all those things and pay attention to the demos, watch the VODs, watch the game live, and check what they're doing, how they're reacting for some stuff, how aggressive they're being. And there's so much in CS, man. There's so much that we could be discussing this for hours.
Yeah.
The biggest difference between an amateur and pro, I would say the decision making. And maybe I have a lot of like friends in lower level that always think about frags, and also those guys in like, for example, people in FBL and lower tier team always see frags and blah blah blah, but they don't really care. Like, I think the lower tier players care more about like stats, I would say, and like numbers, like big numbers. Meanwhile, some like experienced pro doesn't really think about it.
I feel like a lot of the things that the barrier that gets broken between like an amateur and a pro, and the break to that barrier is like communication, team play, and attitude. Like those things, obviously, aim's probably honestly the easiest thing to gain, because you can just grind the hours out. But to have a good mentality, to have like the willingness to like go first when you might die instantly, to make sure you communicate everything you see. All these things are like really important things that are underrated for new players. I think if these new players were to implement that more into their like daily practice routines, like, hey, I should calm everything I see this game, or hey, this game I'm gonna try to entry more to be a better teammate, or hey, I'm gonna try to flash more this game for my teammates. Yeah. Things like that are very underrated, and I think that's kind of why people got kicked in FPL. I think because they're all focused on getting the highest stats and having the best like on the scoreboard, and not focused on trying to be a good teammate. That's probably why they got kicked, and I think it's why they got kicked. So these days, yeah, those three things are what I think that if you're an amateur, you should focus on more, as long as you have the aim, obviously.